The creature's roar shook the training arena as Danny Martinez watched another cadet get thrown across the floor. Blood streaked the white tiles. The Valkorian warbeast stood 12 feet tall, its 6 eyes glowing amber in the dim light. This was the final test, the one that separated officers from failures across 300 civilized worlds. Danny's turn came next. The beast charged before the proctor finished announcing his name. Danny rolled left, feeling the displacement of air as claws missed his shoulder by inches. The crowd of alien cadets gasped. Humans weren't supposed to be fast enough to dodge a warbeast on the first attack. Most species needed cybernetic enhancements just to track the creature's movements. Danny didn't have enhancements. He had something the galaxy hadn't accounted for in 10,000 years of military tradition. The beast pivoted with impossible speed. Danny dropped flat as its tail whipped overhead, the spiked appendage carving through a steel support beam. Sparks rained down. The creature's breath washed over him, hot and reeking of the protein paste they fed it between trials. He should have been terrified. Every instinct humans evolved over millions of years screamed at him to run from this apex predator. Instead, Danny felt something else entirely. Recognition. The warbeast lunged again. This time, Danny stepped forward into the attack. His hand shot out, not in defense, but in a gesture that transcended language and species. The beast's massive head stopped inches from his face. Its 6 eyes focused on him with sudden, complete attention. Danny held perfectly still. He wasn't looking at the creature like prey looked at a predator. He wasn't analyzing it like a soldier studied an enemy. He was looking at it the way his grandfather had looked at the feral dogs behind their farmhouse in Texas, the ones everyone said were too dangerous to approach. The warbeast's nostrils flared. It took in Danny's scent with deep, deliberate breaths. The arena fell absolutely silent. In 3 centuries of trials, no cadet had ever stopped moving during an attack. Movement meant survival. Everyone knew that. Danny kept his hand extended, palm down, fingers loose. He wasn't offering food. He wasn't showing submission. He was offering something the beast had never received in its life of captivity and combat training. The creature's head lowered slowly. Its breath came in shorter bursts now, less aggressive. One massive paw lifted and set down again, closer to Danny. Then, another. The beast's body language shifted from predator to something else entirely. Recognition mirrored back. The warbeast's head dipped further, its 6 eyes half closed. Then, in a motion that made the entire gallery of alien observers rise to their feet in shock, the creature's front legs folded. The beast lowered itself until its massive skull touched the arena floor directly in front of Danny's boots. It knelt. The proctor's voice crackled over the speakers, in a language Danny had learned to understand but would never pronounce correctly. The translation echoed in his earpiece. Impossible. The warbeast does not kneel. It has never knelt. This test is void. This cannot be recorded as valid. Danny finally moved. He placed his hand on the creature's head, feeling the heat of its scaled skin, the rapid pulse of blood vessels beneath. The beast's eyes opened slightly, watching him with something that looked disturbingly like trust. "Why not?" Danny said quietly, knowing the microphones would pick up his words. "You keep saying these things are the perfect warriors, bred from the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, but you forgot something important." The beast shifted its weight, leaning slightly into Danny's touch. "Predators recognize each other," Danny continued. "And on Earth, we spent 50,000 years turning wolves into dogs, wildcats into pets, horses into partners. We didn't do it through strength or fear. We did it through understanding." The proctor's species didn't have facial expressions Danny could read, but the silence, stretching across the arena, spoke volumes. The warbeast remained kneeling, its massive form completely relaxed under Danny's hand. "Test complete," Danny said. "Unless you want to tell me I failed because I didn't get mauled?" The creature rumbled, a sound that vibrated through the floor. It wasn't aggressive. It was almost content. For the first time in 300 years of military trials, the war beast had chosen not to fight. The transport ship lurched as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Danny gripped his seat restraints, while the other cadets remained perfectly still. They had internal gyroscopes, biological dampeners, or in some cases, no inner ear structure to disrupt. Humans got motion sick. Another weakness his instructors loved to point out. 3 weeks had passed since the arena incident. 3 weeks of interrogations, biological scans, psychological evaluations, and endless debates among the Galactic Military Council about whether his test results were valid. They'd finally decided that humanity's first cadet could continue training, but with modifications, additional observers, restricted access to certain species, and absolutely no further contact with war beasts. Danny had expected that last part. What he hadn't expected was the emergency deployment. The training station orbited a moon that circled a gas giant in an otherwise empty system. It should have been the safest location in known space, deliberately chosen for its isolation. But now, alarms screamed through every corridor, and the transport carrying Danny and 15 other cadets was vectoring toward the station's main docking bay at combat speed. Lieutenant Kresh, their Thoraxian instructor, spoke without turning around. His species communicated through a combination of clicks and subsonic pulses that the translation implants rendered as clipped, military-efficient sentences. Pirates. 3 vessels. They shouldn't even know this station exists, but they've already disabled the primary defense grid. Your training is about to become very real. One of the Zephyrite cadets, a being that looked like a floating collection of crystalline shards, pulsed a question in colors. Danny's implant translated. Are we to engage in actual combat? You are to survive, Kresh said. And if possible, protect the civilian staff. This station houses 73 non-combatants, including the research team studying the War Beast program. Danny felt his stomach tighten, and not from the transport's movements. The beasts are still here? 12 specimens in the lower containment levels. The pirates likely don't know about them. If they breach those levels by accident, the loss of life will be catastrophic. The transport shuddered as it entered the docking bay. Through the viewport, Danny saw fires burning in 3 sections of the station. Bodies floated in the zero-gravity sections, where atmosphere had been vented. The pirates hadn't come to rob the station. They'd come to destroy it. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic shriek. Kresh was already moving toward the exit, pulling a plasma rifle from the emergency weapons locker. Martinez? You're with Chen and Vax. Secure the research level. Everyone else, follow your assigned tactical groups. Move now. Danny grabbed a rifle he barely knew how to use, and followed Katie Chen, a human cadet from New Beijing, and Vax, a 4-armed Keltorian, whose species had been warriors for 3,000 years. They sprinted through corridors filled with smoke and emergency lighting. Chen moved like a dancer, her enhanced reflexes putting her ahead of both Danny and Vax. She'd volunteered for the military augmentation program, trading natural human limitations for combat efficiency. Danny had refused the augmentations. His evaluators had called it stubbornness. His father had called it knowing who you are. They reached the research level to find the security door breached. Plasma burns scarred the walls. Inside, Danny heard screaming, the universal sound of terror that needed no translation. Vax charged through the opening, all 4 arms bringing weapons to bear. Chen followed half a second behind. Danny came last, his rifle raised but his finger off the trigger. His training instructors had drilled the fundamentals into him, but 3 months of practice couldn't match the combat experience his alien classmates brought from their warrior cultures. The research lab was chaos. 5 pirates, their species identifiable by the distinctive ridge plates of Corvan raiders, had 3 scientists cornered against a wall of equipment. One of the pirates turned at their entrance, raising a weapon that looked like it had been assembled from scrap metal and bad intentions. Vax fired first. The Keltorian's aim was perfect, dropping the pirate before it could pull its trigger. Chen took the second, with a precise shot to the center mass. But the remaining 3 scattered, using the lab equipment as cover while returning fire. Danny dove behind a desk as plasma bolts melted the wall where he'd been standing. His rifle felt awkward in his hands. Too light in some places and too heavy in others. Galactic standard weapons weren't designed for human ergonomics because until 6 months ago, humans weren't part of the galactic military. One of the scientists screamed again. A pirate had grabbed her, using the elderly Veshkari researcher as a living shield. The translator rendered the pirate's words as crude threats about what would happen if they didn't drop their weapons. Vax and Chen had clear tactical training. They held position, maintained cover, assessed angles of attack. They did everything their instructors had taught them. Danny stood up. Chen hissed his name in warning, but Danny was already moving. He didn't raise his rifle. He didn't make threatening gestures. He walked directly toward the pirate holding the hostage, his hands visible but not raised in surrender. The pirate shouted something the translator struggled with. Probably profanity. Its weapon swung toward Danny, the barrel pressing against the scientist's temple to emphasize the threat. Danny kept walking. His heart hammered against his ribs. His hands wanted to shake. Every survival instinct told him this was suicidal. But he'd learned something in that arena 3 weeks ago, something the galaxy's military doctrines had forgotten. Most violence is communication. The pirate's eyes, all 3 of them in a vertical line on its angular face, showed confusion. Prey didn't approach. Soldiers didn't advance unarmed. What was this strange creature doing? Danny stopped just outside the pirate's reach. He looked directly at the Corvan. Not at the weapon, or the hostage. He spoke in English, knowing his translator would render the words, but more importantly, knowing his tone would carry meaning beyond language. "You're scared," Danny said. "This raid went wrong. You're trapped on a military station with trained cadets hunting you. Your crew is scattered or dead. You're holding that scientist because you think it gives you leverage, but you know it just delays the inevitable." The pirate's weapon hand trembled slightly. "Score 1 for human observation skills. Let her go," Danny continued. "Not because we're asking nicely. Not because it's the right thing to do. Let her go because you're a soldier, not a murderer. I can see the difference. Your crew might be raiders, but you've got military training. Probably served in a real armed force before things went bad." The pirate's third eye, the one in the middle, focused entirely on Danny. The creature's ridged faceplates, which Danny's briefings said were indicators of emotional state, shifted to a pattern he didn't recognize. Behind him, Chen whispered urgently, "Danny, what are you doing?" "Talking," Danny said, not breaking eye contact with the pirate. "Something we're pretty good at." The Corvan's weapon lowered an inch. Just an inch, but enough. "You want to survive this," Danny said. "So do we. So does she. We can all get what we want. Or we can all die in this room while the station tears itself apart. Your choice. But make it fast. I'm betting you've got maybe 2 minutes before Lieutenant Kresh shows up with a tactical team that won't negotiate." The pirate's weapon lowered another inch. Then, another. The scientist remained frozen, her breathing rapid and shallow. Then the Corvan's weapon hand moved, shoving the scientist toward Danny. She stumbled forward, and Chen caught her before she could fall. The pirate stepped back, weapon now pointing at the floor. "Smart choice," Danny said. The pirate's translator crackled. "You are strange, human. Very strange." "Yeah," Danny agreed. "We get that a lot." Vax moved with impressive speed, disarming the pirate and securing restraints before the Corvan could reconsider. The other 2 pirates, watching from cover, threw down their weapons and emerged with their hands raised. Chen stared at Danny like he'd grown an extra head. "That shouldn't have worked." "Probably not," Danny admitted. His hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up. But fighting wasn't working either. Was not. An explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red illumination. A new alarm joined the chorus of warnings, this one with a distinct pattern Danny had heard once during orientation. His blood went cold. Containment breach. Lower levels. Chen's face went pale. The war beasts. Vax checked his weapon charge. We need to evacuate this level immediately. If those creatures are loose, everything between here and the docking bay becomes a killing field. 2. Danny thought about the beast that had knelt in the arena. About the way it had responded to recognition, to understanding, to being treated as something more than a weapon. He thought about 12 more beasts, confused and angry, released into a station full of prey. We need to get to the containment level, Danny said. Both his companions looked at him like he'd suggested swimming in a star. That's suicide, Chen said flatly. It's necessary, Danny countered. Those beasts don't understand what's happening. They'll kill everyone they encounter. Not because they're evil, but because that's what they've been trained to do. Someone needs to get them under control. Vax's 4 eyes all focused on Danny. You believe you can replicate what happened in the arena? That was one beast, in a controlled environment, with safety protocols in place. I don't know if I can, Danny said honestly, but I know what happens if no one tries. How many people are still alive on this station? The lights flickered again. Somewhere in the distance, Danny heard roaring. Multiple voices, each one powerful enough to vibrate the deck plating. Chen checked her rifle charge, then looked at Danny. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Can't it be both? Danny started toward the corridor that led to the lower levels. Besides, I'm not asking you to come. Get these scientists to safety. I'll handle the beasts. Absolutely not, Chen said, falling in beside him. Humans stick together. Plus, someone needs to be there to report exactly how you died when this goes wrong. Vax rumbled something that the translator rendered as Keltorian combat humor. I have fought in 17 campaigns across 12 worlds. I will not let my first human classmate die alone, fighting monsters. That would be bad for my reputation. They moved through corridors that got darker and more damaged with each level they descended. The station's infrastructure was failing. Life support fluctuated. Gravity stuttered. And the roaring got louder. They found the first body on level 7. A maintenance worker, Thoraxian by species, torn apart with the efficiency only a war beast could manage. Danny forced himself to look at the remains, to acknowledge what they were walking toward. Level 8 had 3 more bodies. Pirates this time, their weapons scattered and useless. Level 9 was where they found the first beast. It stood in the center of a junction corridor, its massive frame illuminated by emergency lighting. This one was larger than the specimen Danny had faced in the arena. Its scales were darker, almost black, and its 6 eyes burned with amber intensity. Blood dripped from its claws. The beast saw them and roared. The sound was loud enough to trigger Danny's implant's audio protection. Chen raised her rifle. Vax brought all 4 of his weapons to bear. Don't shoot, Danny said. Are you insane? Chen's finger was on the trigger. Trust me. Danny stepped forward, moving past his companions before they could stop him. He walked toward the war beast with steady steps, his hands empty and visible. The creature watched him approach, its muscles tensed for a charge, its claws flexed against the deck plating. Danny didn't stop walking. 20 feet away. The beast's head lowered, its posture shifting to attack mode. 5 feet. Danny stopped. He looked at the creature the same way he'd looked at the one in the arena. Not as a monster. Not as a weapon. As something that had been taken from its world. Bred for violence. And never given a choice about what it could be. I know you're confused, Danny said quietly. Everything's loud and wrong. There are too many smells. Too much noise. You don't know what's prey and what's danger. The beast's eyes fixed on him. Its breathing slowed slightly. But you remember me, Danny continued. Not me specifically, but what I am. You've never met a human before 3 weeks ago. But something in your genetics recognizes us. Your ancestors, wherever they came from, they knew creatures like us. They knew we could be partners, instead of prey. He extended his hand, palm down, fingers relaxed. The war beast stared at his hand. Its 6 eyes tracked the movement with perfect precision. For a moment that stretched too long, nothing happened. Then the beast's head lowered. Its front legs folded. It knelt. Behind Danny, Chen let out a breath she'd been holding. How is that possible? How is that possible? Because we've done this before, Danny said, his hand resting on the beast's massive skull. The creature rumbled, a sound that vibrated through Danny's bones. It was the same sound the arena beast had made. Almost content. We need to find the others, Danny said. All 11 of them. They moved through the lower levels with the first war beast, walking beside Danny like an enormous, terrifying guard dog. The creature's presence changed everything. Twice they encountered other beasts, and both times Danny repeated the process. Approach. Connection. Kneeling. By the time they reached the main containment level, Danny had 4 war beasts following him. Chen and Vax walked in. What Danny suspected was shock. Their weapons lowered, but ready. The containment level was carnage. Broken cages. Shattered equipment. Blood everywhere. But also survivors. A research team had barricaded themselves in a reinforced observation room, watching through armored glass as the remaining war beasts prowled the area. Danny counted 8 more beasts. They moved in a loose pack, agitated but not actively hunting. They seemed confused, lacking direction. This is insane, Chen muttered. Even for you. This is completely insane. Danny didn't disagree. He walked into the containment area, his 4 beast companions flanking him. The pack of 8 turned as one, their amber eyes glowing in the dim light. 12 war beasts, 12 perfect killing machines, and 1 human who refused to see them that way. Danny spread his arms wide, not in surrender but in openness. You don't belong here, he told the pack. None of you chose this, but you can choose what happens next. The largest of the free beasts, a massive specimen with scarred scales and eyes that burned brighter than the others, took a step forward. This one was the alpha, the dominant creature, the one that would decide how the pack responded. Danny met its gaze without flinching. The alpha beast roared, and every other beast went silent. The sound echoed through the containment level, shaking loose dust from the ceiling. It was a challenge. A test. A question. Danny didn't roar back. Humans couldn't match that kind of sound, and trying would be stupid. Instead, he did something his instructors would have failed him for. He sat down on the blood-stained floor, crossed his legs, and placed his hands in his lap. He made himself vulnerable. The alpha beast's roar cut off. Its head tilted, studying this strange creature that refused to follow any predictable pattern. Prey ran. Predators fought. Warriors held their ground. This human sat down. The alpha approached slowly. Each step was deliberate, its claws clicking against the deck plating. It stopped directly in front of Danny, its massive head lowering until Danny could feel its breath on his face. The beast's 6 eyes examined him from inches away. Danny could see his reflection in those alien eyes, small and soft, and completely outmatched in every physical way that mattered. Then the alpha beast's front legs folded. It lowered itself until it lay on the floor, its head resting near Danny's feet. One by one, the other 7 beasts followed their alpha's lead. They approached, circled Danny, and lay down around him in a protective formation. 12 war beasts. All kneeling. All choosing something other than violence. Chen's voice crackled over the comm, thick with disbelief. Lieutenant Kresh, you need to see this. I don't have words for what I'm seeing. Danny remained still, surrounded by creatures that could tear him apart without effort, feeling oddly safe. The station's intercom crackled to life. Lieutenant Kresh's subsonic voice carried a note Danny had never heard before. Cadet Martinez, report your status. Secure, sir, Danny said. All 12 war beasts are contained and non-hostile. A long pause followed. Contained how exactly? Danny looked at the massive creatures surrounding him. They're with me, sir. They've chosen to be with me. Another pause, longer this time. The pirates have been captured. The station is secure. We're sending a medical team to your location. Don't move. Don't do anything. Just stay exactly where you are until we determine if this situation is stable. Understood, sir. The war beasts remained motionless, their breathing synchronized. Danny's hands trembled as the adrenaline finally caught up with everything that had happened. He'd walked into a station under attack, talked down pirates, and somehow convinced a dozen apex predators to kneel. His father would have loved this story. His mother would have grounded him for life. The alpha beast's eyes remained open, watching Danny with an intelligence that most researchers claimed these creatures didn't possess. But Danny could see it clearly. Awareness. Choice. Trust. The galaxy had spent centuries breeding the perfect biological weapons. They'd succeeded. They just forgot that weapons could choose their own wielder. The Galactic Military Council chamber was designed to be intimidating. 47 different species had contributed to its architecture, resulting in a space that defied comfortable human perception. The ceiling curved in ways that hurt to look at. The walls seemed to shift based on which species was speaking. The lighting cycled through spectrums that Danny's eyes could only partially process. He stood at the center of it all, wearing his cadet uniform that still felt too new. Facing the assembled military leadership of 300 worlds. They'd been arguing about him for 6 hours. Katie Chen stood at attention beside him, along with Vax and 4 other cadets who'd participated in the station defense. Behind them, displayed on screens that accommodated various visual spectrums, footage from the incident played on loop. Danny walking toward pirates. Danny approaching war beasts. Danny surrounded by 12 kneeling apex predators. The council's primary speaker, a Valkorian whose name Danny couldn't pronounce, shifted its crystalline form to a configuration that signaled formal address. Cadet Daniel Martinez. Your actions during the pirate assault have created unprecedented complications. Danny kept his expression neutral. Sir, I successfully secured hostile entities and protected civilian lives. I was under the impression those were acceptable military objectives. A ripple of reaction moved through the council. Several species communicated through bioluminescence, creating waves of colored light that Danny's implant struggled to translate. The general sentiment seemed to be amusement mixed with frustration. You violated protocols, another council member said. This one from a species that looked like an ambulatory plant. You approached hostile forces without proper combat support. You engaged war beasts that were classified as extreme threat entities. You created a situation that has fundamentally undermined 3 centuries of military doctrine. Respectfully, sir, I saved 73 lives and neutralized a threat without additional casualties. If protocols prevent successful outcomes, perhaps the protocols need examination. Lieutenant Kresh, standing in the observer section, made a sound that might have been thoracian approval or indigestion. Hard to tell. The Valkorian speaker shifted again. Your species has been part of the galactic community for less than 1 standard cycle. You have been a military cadet for 3 months, yet you have demonstrated abilities that contradict every assessment we have made regarding human combat potential. We're not warriors, Danny said. Not the way most council species are. We didn't evolve that way. But we're really good at making friends with things that should eat us. We've been doing it for 50,000 years. Friends, the plant-like council member repeated. The translator rendering the word with something that sounded like skepticism. You believe you established friendship with war beasts, creatures specifically bred to be incapable of social bonding. Then your breeding program failed. Danny said bluntly. Because those beasts made a choice. They chose not to kill me. They chose to follow. That's not programming. That's cognition. More bioluminescent conversation rippled through the chamber. Danny caught fragments of the translation. Impossible. Anomaly. Dangerous precedent. The Valkorian speaker finally solidified into a configuration that Danny had learned meant final decision. The Council cannot ignore what occurred. Neither can we fully accept it. Therefore, we have decided on a course of action that will either validate your claims or prove them to be statistical aberrations. Danny felt his stomach tighten. Nothing good ever followed that kind of statement. You will be promoted to active duty, effective immediately. The speaker continued. You will be assigned to the 7th Fleet's Scout Division and deployed to Frontier Station Kepler 442. This station monitors the edge of known space, where both pirate activity and unclassified hostile entities are common. Chen inhaled sharply beside him. Kepler 442 had a reputation. It was where the Council sent cadets they wanted to test under real combat conditions. It was also where cadets frequently died. You will be permitted to take the 12 war beasts with you, the speaker said. They have proven unmanageable by standard handlers since the incident. If your connection to them is genuine, you will maintain control. If it was circumstantial, we will learn that quickly. And if it was circumstantial, Danny asked, what happens to the beasts? They will be terminated as compromised military assets. The casual way the speaker said it made Danny's hands clench. They're not assets. They're living beings. They are weapons that the galactic military created, funded, and deployed. Their purpose is combat. If they cannot fulfill that purpose under proper control, they have no purpose at all. Danny wanted to argue further, but Kresh's subsonic voice cut through his thoughts via his implant's private channel. Accept the assignment, Cadet. Fighting them now gains nothing. Danny forced himself to nod. Understood, sir. When do we deploy? Your transport leaves in 6 hours. Use that time to prepare. You will be briefed on Kepler 442's current tactical situation during transit. The Valkorian speaker shifted back to a neutral configuration. Dismissed. Danny saluted. Turned with military precision, he drilled until his muscles memorized it, and walked out of the council chamber with as much dignity as he could manage. Chen caught up with him in the corridor outside. Kepler 442. They're sending you to die. Maybe, Danny admitted. Or maybe they're giving me a chance to prove that humans bring something valuable to the galaxy. By throwing you into the most dangerous posting in the fleet with 12 potentially unstable bioweapons as your only backup? When you put it that way, it sounds bad. Chen punched his shoulder hard enough to bruise. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest. Still going with both, Danny said. They walked in silence for a moment. The station bustled around them, with the organized chaos of a military installation. Dozens of species moved through the corridors, each contributing to the vast machine of galactic defense. Until a few months ago, humanity had been on the outside looking in. Judged as too primitive, too violent, too unpredictable for membership. Now Danny was about to be shipped to the edge of known space, with 12 war beasts that might or might not actually listen to him when things got difficult. His mother was going to kill him if the pirates didn't. I'm coming with you, Chen said suddenly. Danny stopped walking. I'm requesting transfer to Kepler 442. You'll need backup. Who understands humans? And I'm not letting you face that posting alone. Katie, you don't have to do that. Your scores put you on track for a tactical command position. Kepler 442 is where careers go to die. Or where they get made, Chen countered. Besides, someone needs to document exactly how you either revolutionize military doctrine or get eaten by your own war beasts. Either way, it'll be one hell of a story. Danny couldn't argue with that logic. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. Thank me if we both survive long enough to retire. They found Vax in the cadet quarters, already packing his equipment. The Keltorian looked up as they entered, all 4 of his eyes focusing on them simultaneously. I have also requested transfer to Kepler 442. Danny blinked. You too? My people value honor above all else. You saved my life during the pirate assault, and you did so through methods my culture respects. I am honor-bound to stand beside you until that debt is repaid. Vax secured another weapon to his equipment harness. Also, I wish to study how you interact with the war beasts. No Keltorian has ever managed what you accomplished. So I'm collecting a crew now? Danny asked. Every human military story I have studied involves a mismatched crew facing impossible odds, Vax said. It appears we are following tradition. Chen laughed. He's got you there. The 6 hours before departure passed too quickly. Danny submitted his transfer paperwork, updated his will, because Kresh insisted every active duty member have one, and sent a carefully worded message to his parents that made frontier deployment sound like a routine assignment instead of potential suicide. Then he went to see the war beasts. They'd moved the creatures to a specialized transport bay, a massive cargo hold modified with reinforced restraints and heavy weaponry positioned to fire inward. The precautions seemed excessive, given that the beasts had been docile since the incident. But the galactic military wasn't taking chances. The 12 war beasts occupied the center of the bay, surrounded by nervous guards from 3 different species. When Danny entered, all 12 heads turned toward him simultaneously. Their amber eyes tracked his movement with perfect precision. The alpha beast rose first. It approached the energy barrier separating the beasts from the rest of the bay, stopping just short of the field. The other 11 followed, arranging themselves behind their alpha in a formation that looked disturbingly like military discipline. Danny walked up to the barrier. The guards tensed, weapons ready. Barrier down, Danny said. Cadet! That's not authorized, one of the guards protested. These creatures are classified as extreme threat. We're going to be traveling together for 3 weeks, Danny said. They need to know I'm still here. Still with them. Barrier down, please. The guard looked at his companions, who looked at their supervisors via communication implants, who apparently decided this was Danny's funeral. The energy barrier flickered and died. The alpha beast took 1 step forward, then another. It stopped directly in front of Danny, its massive head lowering until they were almost eye to eye. Danny placed his hand on the creature's scaled skull, feeling the warmth of its skin, the rapid pulse of its breathing. We're going somewhere dangerous, he said quietly. A place where we'll both need to be at our best. I need to know if you understand that. If you're choosing this. The alpha beast rumbled. That same almost content sound Danny had heard before. Its 6 eyes remained fixed on him, unblinking and intent. I'm not going to treat you like a weapon, Danny continued. And I'm not going to get you killed because the council wants to prove a point. We're going to figure this out together. You, me, and your pack. The beast shifted its weight, leaning slightly into Danny's touch. Behind it, the other 11 beasts watched with what Danny swore was anticipation. He spent the next hour with the beasts, establishing presence, reinforcing the connection they'd formed during the station attack. The guards watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as Danny walked among creatures that could tear apart armored vehicles. Chen found him there when departure time approached. Transport's ready. They've modified a cargo hauler to accommodate your friends. It's going to be a tight fit. Danny looked at the 12 massive creatures. We'll manage. We've managed everything else. The journey to Kepler 442 took 3 weeks through the interstitial channels that allowed faster-than-light travel. Danny spent most of that time in the cargo hold with the war beasts, studying their behavior, learning their individual personalities. The alpha he named Ghost, because it moved with impossible silence despite its size. The others received names based on their characteristics. Scar, Red-Eye, Titan, Shadow, Storm, Blade, Fang, Dawn, Dusk, Iron, Smoke. Chen teased him about naming bioweapons like pets. Danny pointed out that they responded to the names, which suggested they were more than weapons. Vax spent the journey teaching Danny proper combat techniques, pointing out that talking to enemies would only work until it didn't. And Danny needed skills for when words failed. Danny learned Keltorian close-quarters combat, human military tactics from Chen, and read every briefing file available about Kepler 442. What he learned wasn't encouraging. Kepler 442 sat at the edge of a stellar cluster, where 3 different stellar nations claimed territory without agreeing on borders. It was a haven for pirates, smugglers, and worse. The station defended a mining colony on a nearby moon, and monitored sensor arrays watching for incursions from unknown space. The previous station commander had been killed 3 months ago during a raid. Her replacement had lasted 6 weeks. The current commander was on their 3rd week, and betting pools among the crew gave them another 10 days. The transport dropped out of faster-than-light travel to find Kepler 442 under attack. Again. 4 pirate vessels surrounded the station, exchanging fire with defensive turrets. Fighters swarmed between them, engaged in dogfights that painted streaks of light across space. The station's shields flickered under sustained bombardment. "Welcome to Kepler 442," the pilot announced with dark humor. "Please keep your restraints fastened, and your prayers to whatever deities you prefer ready." Danny strapped in beside Chen and Vax while the transport maneuvered through the battle zone. Plasma bolts streaked past their viewport. Explosions blossomed in the darkness. This was real war, not training exercises or even the brief violence of the station defense. This was what humanity had asked to join. In the cargo hold, the war beasts roared in response to the weapons fire, their instincts responding to perceived threats. Danny's implant picked up their elevated stress signals. They were agitated, confused, ready to fight but unable to reach their enemies. "Ghost," Danny said quietly, trusting his implant to carry his voice to the cargo hold. "Easy. We'll get there." The roaring diminished slightly. Not much, but enough. The transport shuddered as a plasma bolt clipped their shields. The pilot cursed in a language the translator didn't catch. The ship dove toward the station's docking bay. Shields, glowing from repeated hits. They made it inside with seconds to spare. The bay doors slammed shut behind them as another explosion rocked the station. Commander Thrace met them on the landing pad. She was Velcorian, like the council speaker, but her crystalline structure showed stress fractures and scorch marks that suggested recent combat. Her translated voice carried exhaustion. "Martinez? You're the human with the war beast pack?" "Yes, sir." "Good. We need all the help we can get. The pirates have been hitting us daily for 2 weeks. We're down to half crew, and reinforcements won't arrive for another month." She looked past Danny to where the cargo hold was opening, revealing 12 massive silhouettes. "Can those things actually fight?" "Sir, I'd prefer not to think of them as things." "Can they fight?" Thrace repeated, too tired for semantic debates. "Yes, sir, if needed. It's needed. Get them and your crew to the defensive positions on level 4. We've got a breach in the east quarter that we can't seal while under fire. Your beasts might be able to hold that section." Danny saluted and turned to Chen and Vax. "You heard her. Let's move." They ran through corridors that made the training station look pristine. Kepler 442 showed its age and its constant battles. Scorch marks covered every surface. Emergency patches held breaches together. The crew they passed looked exhausted and desperate. Level 4 was worse. The eastern section had been breached 3 times, according to the posted warnings. Current atmosphere was marginal. Gravity was failing in 2 quadrants. And somewhere beyond the sealed emergency doors, pirates were trying to break through. Danny positioned the war beasts in a defensive formation across the breach point. They moved with surprising discipline, each beast taking position like trained soldiers. Ghost stood at the center, flanked by Scar and Titan. The others formed a second line, ready to reinforce or pursue. "They actually understand tactical positioning," Vax observed, with professional interest. "They're smart," Danny said. "Everyone just assumed they were too aggressive to train properly. But aggression isn't stupidity." The emergency doors began to glow as something on the other side applied focused heat. The pirates were cutting through. Chen checked her rifle. Vax readied all 4 of his weapons. Danny stood between them and the war beasts, ready to either fight or translate between species, depending on which was needed. The doors exploded inward. Pirates poured through the breach, a dozen of them from 4 different species. They saw the war beasts and hesitated for just a moment. That moment was enough. Ghost roared and charged. The other beasts followed, moving with coordinated precision that spoke to pack tactics older than civilization. The pirates fired wildly, hitting 2 of the beasts, but war beast hide was designed to withstand military-grade weapons. The plasma bolts burned, but didn't stop them. What followed was brutal and efficient. The war beasts moved through the pirates, like apex predators through prey. Danny wanted to look away, but forced himself to watch. This was the reality of what he'd brought to Kepler 442. Beautiful. Terrible. Necessary. Violence. In 90 seconds, it was over. The pirates were dead or dying. The war beasts stood among the bodies, breathing hard but unhurt except for minor burns. Ghost turned to look at Danny, its 6 eyes reflecting emergency lighting. "Good job," Danny said quietly. "That's enough." The beast's posture relaxed slightly. The pack reformed around Ghost, waiting for the next command. Chen stared at the carnage. "Okay. That was both amazing and terrifying. Welcome to Kepler 442, Danny said, echoing the pilot's earlier greeting. "I think we're going to fit right in." The eastern breach was sealed by a repair team while the war beasts maintained watch. Danny stayed with them, reinforcing their discipline, making sure they understood the difference between threats and allies. It wasn't easy. The beasts' instincts screamed at them to hunt anything that moved wrong, smelled wrong, felt like prey, but they listened. They chose to listen. Commander Thrace appeared an hour after the breach was sealed, accompanied by her security chief and tactical officer. She studied the war beasts with her crystalline equivalent of a critical eye. "They're effective. More effective than I expected. They're soldiers," Danny said. "They just needed someone to treat them that way, instead of like weapons. There's a difference? Weapons don't choose. Soldiers do." Thrace's crystalline structure shifted in a way Danny's implant translated as thoughtful consideration. "The pirates have a command ship 3 sectors away. We've tracked it but lack the firepower to engage. If we could disable it, the raids would stop or at least decrease significantly." Danny felt where this was going. "You want us to go after it. I want to know if your war beasts can operate in boarding actions. If they can, you and your team will spearhead an assault on that command ship. If they can't, we'll find other uses for them here on the station." Chen stepped forward. "Sir, we just arrived. We haven't had time to properly assess combat readiness or establish operational protocols. This is Kepler 442, Cadet. We don't have time for proper assessment. We barely have time to breathe between attacks." Thrace's attention returned to Danny. "I need an answer within 6 hours. Can your beasts handle a boarding action?" Danny looked at Ghost and the pack. They'd just proven they could fight in confined spaces, but a boarding action meant operating in zero gravity, moving through hostile territory, distinguishing between enemies and potential hostages. It meant asking them to be not just effective, but precise. "Yes, sir," Danny heard himself say. "We can handle it." "Good. Briefing in 4 hours. Be ready." Thrace left, taking her officers with her. Danny stood alone with Chen, Vax, and 12 war beasts that were now apparently part of an assault team. "You're sure about this?" Chen asked quietly. "No," Danny admitted, "but when have we ever been sure?" The 4 hours before the briefing passed in intensive preparation. Danny worked with each beast individually, testing their response to commands, establishing trust on a deeper level. Vax drilled combat scenarios, while Chen analyzed the tactical data they had on the pirate command ship. What they learned wasn't encouraging. The ship was a modified Corvan heavy cruiser, stripped for speed and packed with weapons. It carried a crew of at least 200, possibly more. The ship's shields were military grade, and its point defense systems could shred small attack craft. "It's a fortress," Chen said, highlighting sections of the tactical display. "Even if we get through the shields, the interior is going to be a maze of kill zones designed to prevent exactly what we're trying to do. So we don't go in predictably," Danny said. "The pirates expect either a frontal assault or precision infiltration. They won't expect war beasts." Vax made an approving sound. "Shock and chaos. My people's preferred opening strategy. Once inside, we let the beasts establish superiority while we target critical systems." "What about crew?" Chen asked. "There might be prisoners, slaves, or people who were forced into service. We need rules of engagement that account for non-combatants. The beasts can tell the difference between someone fighting and someone surrendering," Danny said. "They proved that during the station defense. We just need to make sure everyone knows to surrender properly." The briefing confirmed their worst expectations. Commander Thrace's tactical plan called for a three-pronged assault. 2 attack wings would engage the pirate ship's defensive systems, while the boarding team, led by Danny and his war beasts, would breach the ship's port cargo bay and fight toward the bridge. Simple. Direct. Likely to get everyone killed. "The cargo bay is their weakest point defensively," Thrace explained. "But it's also where they'll concentrate forces once they realize we're boarding. You'll face heavy resistance immediately." "That's fine," Danny said. "Heavy resistance is what the beasts are designed for. Your primary objective is the bridge, secondary is engineering. Disable either and the ship becomes salvage. Kill both, and we can claim it as a prize." Thrace's structure shifted, in what might have been a smile. "Questions? How do we extract if things go wrong?" Chen asked. "You don't. If the boarding fails, we withdraw and leave you to your fate. I won't risk more ships trying to save a failed assault." 2023. All. 1. 2000. 2000. 2000. 2000. 2000. 2000. The room fell silent. That was harsh even by Frontier Station standards. "Understood, sir," Danny said. "We won't fail. See that you don't. You deploy in 2 hours. Use that time well." Danny spent the time doing final checks on equipment and having what might be the last conversation with his war beasts before everything went wrong. He stood among them in the cargo bay, surrounded by 12 massive predators that had chosen to follow him. "This is going to be different from the station," he told them. "You'll be fighting in zero gravity, in enclosed spaces, against enemies who know you're coming. Some of you might die. I might die. But if we succeed, we save lives. We protect people. That's what soldiers do." Ghost rumbled, and the pack answered in chorus. It wasn't quite language, but Danny felt the meaning. They understood. They accepted. They chose. The boarding craft was a heavily armored transport designed to punch through shields and deliver troops directly into enemy vessels. Danny, Chen, and Vax strapped into crash seats while the war beasts secured themselves with specialized harnesses that looked barely adequate for creatures their size. The pilot was a grizzled Thoraxian veteran who'd made more boarding runs than Danny had been alive. "Once we breach, you'll have maybe 30 seconds before the pirates seal you in with emergency bulkheads. Get deep fast, or you'll be trapped in the cargo bay fighting every pirate on the ship." "Understood," Danny said, feeling his stomach tighten with pre-combat anxiety. The transport launched with brutal acceleration. Through the viewports, Danny watched Kepler 442 fall away, replaced by the black of space and distant stars. The pirate command ship appeared as a growing shadow against that darkness, its weapons firing at the attack wings that harried its flanks. "Shields breached," the pilot announced. 30 seconds to contact. 20. 10. Brace for impact. The transport slammed into the pirate ship's hull with enough force to trigger Danny's crash harness's emergency restraints. Metal screamed. Sparks flew. Then the boarding hatch blew open, revealing the chaos of a cargo bay filled with armed pirates. "Go! Go! Go!" the pilot screamed. Danny released his harness and dropped through the hatch into zero gravity. Chen and Vax followed. The war beasts came last, roaring as they entered the enemy ship. The pirates opened fire immediately. Plasma bolts filled the cargo bay. Danny dove behind a cargo container, his rifle returning fire on targets his implant highlighted. Chen moved with augmented precision, taking down 3 pirates in rapid succession. Vax charged directly into the enemy lines, all 4 arms firing. But it was the war beasts that transformed the battle. They moved through zero gravity like they'd been born to it, pushing off surfaces with explosive force, using the cargo containers as launching points for devastating attacks. Ghost led the charge, its massive form slamming into a cluster of pirates hard enough to send bodies tumbling through the air. The cargo bay became a swirling chaos of combat. Blood globules floated through the zero gravity. Bodies spun in unpredictable vectors. The beasts hunted with terrifying efficiency, working as a coordinated pack to corner and eliminate enemies. Danny caught movement in his peripheral vision and turned to find a pirate aiming a weapon at Chen's back. He fired twice, dropping the pirate before the shot could connect. Chen nodded acknowledgement and kept moving. "Bridge is forward and up," Vax shouted over the combat noise. "We need to move before they lock us down." Danny whistled, a sharp sound that cut through the chaos. Ghost's head turned toward him. Danny pointed at the cargo bay's exit. The beast understood, gathering its pack and driving toward the indicated door like a living battering ram. The pirates tried to hold the exit. They failed. Ghost and 3 other beasts hit the defensive position with such force that the pirates didn't just die, they scattered. The path forward was clear, painted red with consequences. They moved through the ship's corridors with the war beasts leading. Each intersection brought fresh combat. Each sealed door that they breached revealed more pirates. But the enemy was panicking now, their tactics becoming increasingly desperate. They'd never faced anything like the war beasts, in close quarters aboard their own ship. "Engineering is 3 levels down," Chen said, checking her tactical display. "We should split. Some of us take the bridge, some hit engineering." "No splitting," Danny said. "We stay together or we die apart." "Bridge is priority," Vax argued. "If we control the bridge, we control the ship." Danny was about to respond when the corridor ahead of them exploded. Not from weapons fire, but from the ship's own systems. The pirates were using their defensive measures, sealing sections and venting atmosphere to slow the assault. Alarms screamed. Emergency bulkheads began to drop. If they didn't move now, they'd be trapped. "Run!" Danny shouted. They sprinted through the corridor as sections behind them sealed. The war beasts ran with them, their claws finding purchase on walls and ceiling as the gravity flickered and failed. They made it through the last bulkhead with inches to spare, dropping into a new section of the ship just as atmosphere vented behind them. "That was too close," Chen gasped. "It's going to get closer," Danny said, reloading his rifle with hands that were steadier than they should be. "They know where we are now. They'll be concentrating forces to stop us." He was right. The next corridor opened into an ambush. 20 pirates, positioned behind cover, with crossfire lanes that would shred anything that entered. Heavy weapons that could hurt even war beasts. "Contact front," Vax called unnecessarily, already returning fire with all 4 arms. Danny's mind raced through options. Direct assault would get them killed. Retreat meant losing momentum. They needed something unexpected. "Ghost," Danny called. Above, the Alpha Beast looked up at the ceiling panels, understanding Danny's intention immediately. With a powerful leap, Ghost crashed through the thin metal, entering the maintenance space above. 3 other beasts followed. The pirates, focused on the corridor entrance, didn't see the ceiling breach until too late. 4 war beasts dropped into their positions from above, attacking from an unexpected angle. The ambush became chaos. Danny, Chen, and Vax pushed forward while the pirates were distracted. They took down targets of opportunity, cleared positions, and drove toward the bridge. The war beasts rejoined them after the ambush was broken, bloody but victorious. They reached the bridge approach to find it sealed by blast doors that could withstand sustained capital ship weapons. A defensive position had been established, with automated turrets and a full squad of what looked like the pirates' best fighters. "This is the last stand," Chen said. "They'll have concentrated everything here. Then we end it," Danny said. "Ghost, can your pack breach those doors?" The Alpha Beast studied the blast doors with 6 calculating eyes. Then it turned to its pack and made a series of low rumbling sounds. The other beasts responded, forming up around the doors in a coordinated formation. Together, all 12 war beasts attacked the blast doors. Claws designed to tear through armor struck in perfect synchronization. The doors, meant to withstand weapons, weren't designed to handle biological force applied with such coordination. Metal screamed. Stress fractures appeared. The doors began to buckle. The pirates fired everything they had at the beasts. Several took hits, their hide absorbing damage that would kill unarmored soldiers. But they didn't stop. They couldn't stop. They'd chosen this fight, and war beasts didn't retreat. The blast doors failed. They tore apart under sustained assault, revealing the bridge beyond. Danny charged through with Chen and Vax, their weapons targeting the bridge crew. The war beasts followed, roaring loud enough to trigger audio protection in every combat implant. The pirate captain, a Corvan female with elaborate ridge plates, stood at her command station with weapons drawn. "You should have stayed away from my ship, humans." "Should have," Danny agreed, his rifle trained on her. The captain looked at the war beasts filling her bridge, at the armed soldiers behind them, at the bodies of her crew scattered throughout her vessel. She looked at odds that couldn't be overcome. She dropped her weapons. "I yield." "Good choice," Danny said. Within minutes, the remaining pirates were surrendering throughout the ship. The assault wings outside reported the enemy fighters were breaking off. The battle was over. Commander Thrace's voice crackled over the comm. "Martinez, report. Bridge secured, sir. Ship is ours." A pause, longer than it should be. "How many casualties on your team?" Danny looked at Chen and Vax, both standing and whole if a bit worse for wear. He looked at the war beasts, several showing burns and wounds but all functional. "0 fatalities, sir. Minor injuries across the board." Another pause. "You're telling me you took an enemy capital ship with no losses?" "The war beasts are very effective, sir." "Apparently." Thrace's tone shifted to something that might have been respect. "Secure the ship and prepare it for skeleton crew transit. You just gave Kepler 442 its first capital vessel. Well done, Martinez. Well done to all of you." Danny let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. They'd done it. Against odds that should have killed them, they'd succeeded. Ghost approached and lowered its massive head toward Danny. He placed his hand on the beast's skull, feeling the rapid pulse of post-combat adrenaline, the heat of its exertion. "You were amazing," Danny told the pack. "All of you. You chose to be soldiers, and you were the best soldiers I've ever seen." The war beasts rumbled in response, a sound that echoed through the captured bridge. Chen walked over, her expression shifting between exhaustion and exhilaration. "We actually did it." "We did," Danny agreed. Vax joined them, all 4 arms checking his weapons out of habit. "My people have a saying. A warrior is defined not by the battles they win, but by who they choose to fight beside. I am honored to have fought beside all of you today." "The feeling's mutual," Danny said. They stood together on the captured bridge, surrounded by war beasts that had chosen to be more than weapons. having proved that sometimes the galaxy's assumptions about what was possible needed to be challenged. The transport back to Kepler 442 carried not just soldiers, but a captured capital ship under prize law. Commander Thrace met them in the docking bay personally, her crystalline structure showing repairs and the distinctive pattern that indicated genuine pleasure. "The Council is going to have opinions about this," she said without preamble. "A human cadet taking a capital ship on his first active deployment will cause debates that last years. Let them debate," Danny said. "We proved what we came here to prove." Which was that there's more than one way to be a soldier. That understanding can be as powerful as force. That the war beasts aren't just weapons to be deployed, but beings capable of choice and discipline. Thrace regarded the 12 beasts standing at attention behind Danny. "They certainly changed how this posting operates. With a capital ship and your pack defending the station, the pirates will think twice before attacking." "That's the idea, sir." "There's another matter," Thrace said. "The captured pirates are requesting to speak with you specifically. The captain says she has information you need to hear." "There's another matter. Also, the captain says she has information you need to hear." Danny exchanged glances with Chen and Vax. She wouldn't say. Only that it concerns humans, and something called the Accord. The interrogation room was standard across the galaxy. Bare walls, minimal furniture, surveillance equipment that made privacy impossible. The pirate captain sat with restraints on all 4 limbs, her ridge plates showing a pattern Danny's implant translated as resignation. "You wanted to talk," Danny said, sitting across from her with Chen and Vax flanking him. "I did." The captain's eyes, all 3 of them, focused on Danny with uncomfortable intensity. "News travels fast. In certain circles, yes. My crew wasn't just pirates, Martinez. We were scouts for the Kashari Accord. You've heard of them?" Danny's implant searched its database. "Hostile. Stellar nation. No formal contact with the Galactic Council. Believed to be expanding territory through conquest." "Believed correctly," the captain said. "And they're very interested in humanity." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Why?" "Because you did something impossible. The war beasts were created by the Council as the ultimate biological weapons. Every species in the galaxy accepted that they couldn't be controlled except through force and fear. Then a human shows up and makes them kneel through understanding." She leaned forward as much as her restraints allowed. "The Accord wants that ability. They want to know how humans can bond with hostile species. They want to weaponize it." Chen spoke for the first time. "That's insane. We can't weaponize empathy. Can't you?" The captain's tone was almost pitying. "Your people are barely into space. You don't understand the forces watching you. The Accord has been studying Earth for 2 standard cycles. They know about your history with animal domestication. They know about your cognitive flexibility, your ability to find common ground with alien minds. And now you've proved you can do it with war beasts." Danny felt sick. "What does the Accord want?" "Initially, they wanted to capture you. Study you. Figure out what makes humans different. But after today's display, their plans changed. If one human with 12 war beasts can take a capital ship, what could an army of humans do with proper support? They want to recruit us," Vax said, his tone carrying disgust. "Or conquer you," the captain agreed. "Whichever proves easier. The Accord doesn't negotiate. They acquire assets and eliminate obstacles. Humanity will be one or the other within the next standard cycle." Danny stood abruptly. "This is a trick. You're trying to make us panic." "I'm trying to give you warning," the captain said. "My crew was sent to assess Kepler 442's defenses because the Accord is planning an assault. Not on this station specifically, but on the entire sector. They're going to push the Council back 20 systems and establish a foothold that includes human space." "Why tell us this?" Chen asked. "If you're part of the Accord, why warn your enemies?" The captain's ridge plates shifted to a pattern Danny didn't recognize. Because I have 3 offspring in the Accord military. When the council falls, they'll be on the front lines. I'd rather they faced an enemy that knows what's coming than one caught off guard. At least then, they'll die with honor. Danny sat back down slowly. When is this assault supposed to happen? 6 months. Maybe less if the Accord's strategic planners get authorization early. They're massing ships at rally points outside Council sensor range. When they move, they'll hit fast and hard. The Council needs to know, Vax said. The Council won't believe it. The captain countered. They'll think I'm spreading disinformation. They'll debate and argue, while the Accord finalizes preparations. By the time the Council acts, it'll be too late. She focused on Danny again. But you, Martinez, you've proved you can do impossible things. If anyone can prepare humanity for what's coming, it's you and your war beasts. Danny sat in Commander Thrace's office while she contacted the Galactic Military Council. The conversation was predictably frustrating. Council members interrupted each other, demanded proof that couldn't be provided, and generally acted like politicians instead of military leaders. A captured pirate's testimony is not sufficient evidence for fleet mobilization, one council member argued. Nor is it sufficient to ignore, Thrace countered. If the Accord is planning an assault, we need to prepare. If they're planning an assault, if this isn't disinformation, if our resources aren't better spent elsewhere. The council members' species communicated through musical tones that Danny's implant struggled to translate. We cannot justify major strategic shifts based on a single source. The argument continued for another hour, accomplishing nothing except wasting time. Danny finally stood and walked out of the office, ignoring Thrace's gesture to stay. He found Chen and Vax waiting in the corridor outside. Well? Chen asked. They're not going to do anything, Danny said. They'll debate and analyze until the Accord's ships are destroying Council stations. Then, what do we do? Vax asked. Danny thought about the war beasts, about the pack that had chosen to follow him, about the connection they'd formed that the galaxy said was impossible, about humanity's strange talent for making friends with things that should eat them. We prepare anyway, Danny said. If the Council won't protect humanity, we'll protect ourselves. How? Chen asked. We're 3 soldiers and 12 war beasts. The Accord has fleets. Then we build our own fleet, Danny said, starting with the capital ship we just captured. And we find more war beasts. There are breeding facilities on 6 different worlds. Thousands of beasts that the Council treats like ammunition. We free them. We train them. We turn them into the army humanity needs. That's theft of military assets, Vax pointed out. The Council would consider it treason. Better to be a living traitor than a dead patriot, Danny said. Besides, we're not stealing the beasts. We're liberating them. There's a difference. Chen smiled, the expression carrying equal parts excitement and insanity. You want to start a rebellion using war beasts that might or might not listen to humans other than you. That's your plan? That's my plan. It's completely insane. Yeah, Danny agreed. But so was everything else we've done. And it's worked so far. Vax made a sound that the translator rendered as fatalistic amusement. I have fought in 17 campaigns across 12 worlds. None of them were as strange as following a human who makes war beasts kneel. But honor demands I see this through. I am with you, Martinez. Me too, Chen said. Someone needs to document the moment humanity either saved itself or committed collective suicide. Might as well be me. They stood together in the corridor of Kepler 442, 3 soldiers who'd just decided to defy the Galactic Military Council and possibly start a war. It should have felt more dramatic. Instead, it felt like the only logical next step. We'll need a crew, Danny said. People who understand what we're trying to do. Pilots, engineers, tactical specialists. And we'll need to move fast before the Council realizes what we're doing. I know some people, Chen said. From before I joined the military. They're good people who got screwed by council bureaucracy. They might be interested in a chance to fix that. And I can reach out to my clan, Vax added. Not all Keltorians serve the council. Some work as independent contractors. They would appreciate the opportunity to fight in a truly worthy cause. Danny nodded. Okay. We've got 6 months before the Accord moves. We use that time to build our force, free as many war beasts as possible, and prepare humanity for a war most people don't even know is coming. And if the council tries to stop us? Chen asked. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, Danny said. One impossible thing at a time. They returned to the cargo bay where the war beasts waited. Ghost approached immediately, its 6 eyes studying Danny with that disturbing intelligence the galaxy said shouldn't exist in biological weapons. We're going to try something crazy, Danny told the pack. We're going to find others like you. Free them. Train them. Build an army that fights because it chooses to, not because it's forced to. And we're going to protect Earth from enemies who see humanity as either assets to acquire or obstacles to eliminate. Ghost rumbled. And the pack responded in chorus. It wasn't quite language, but Danny felt the meaning clearly. They understood, they accepted, they chose. All right then, Danny said, placing his hand on Ghost's massive skull. Let's change the galaxy. Commander Thrace found them preparing the captured capital ship for departure. Martinez. I can't officially support what you're planning. I know, sir. But unofficially, I think you might be right. The council is too slow, too cautious. If the Accord is coming, humanity needs defenders who won't wait for authorization to act. She handed Danny a data chip. This contains coordinates for every war beast breeding facility in council space, along with security protocols and guard rotations. If you're going to free them, this will help. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Just succeed. And when the council realizes what you've done and sends ships to stop you, don't come back here. I'll deny ever helping you. Understood, sir. Thrace's crystalline structure shifted to a configuration Danny had learned meant respect. You're either going to save humanity or doom it, Martinez. Either way, it's going to be one hell of a story. That's what Chen keeps saying. They departed Kepler 442 6 hours later aboard the captured capital ship, which Danny had renamed Hope's Defiance over Chen's protests, that it was too dramatic. The ship carried 3 humans, 1 Keltorian, 12 war beasts, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. It would have to be enough. The first breeding facility was on a moon orbiting a gas giant in a system so isolated that the only regular visitors were supply transports. Danny's tactical plan was simple. Land. Locate the beasts. Free them. Convince them to join. Leave before security forces arrived. Simple plans rarely survived contact with reality. They landed to find the facility on high alert. Someone had warned them. The council had figured out what Danny was planning faster than he'd hoped. Defensive positions, Danny ordered. Chen, Vax, secure the landing zone. Ghost, your pack is with me. They moved through the facility like they'd rehearsed it 100 times. Danny led, with the war beasts flanking him, ready for anything. The facility staff had evacuated to secure positions, leaving the beast enclosures undefended. Perfect. Danny reached the first enclosure to find 6 war beasts, pacing in obvious agitation. They'd heard Ghost's pack approaching, and were responding to the presence of others of their kind. When Danny opened the enclosure, they charged out in a rush of movement and instinct. Ghost roared, a sound that carried authority and command. The 6 new beasts stopped, their attention focusing on the alpha. A moment of tension stretched. These were beasts that knew only captivity and training through fear. They didn't understand choice. Danny stepped between Ghost and the new arrivals. He used the same techniques that had worked in the arena. Approach. Recognition. Connection. He made himself vulnerable. The largest of the new beasts approached slowly. Its eyes, all 6 of them, studied Danny with the same intensity Ghost had shown weeks ago. Then, as if responding to something coded in genetics deeper than training, it lowered its head. It chose. The other 5 followed their companion's lead. Within minutes, Danny's pack had grown to 18 warbeasts. They freed 2 more enclosures before facility security arrived with weapons and reinforcements. But they were too late. 24 warbeasts stood with Danny, Chen, and Vax. The security forces took one look at the numbers and wisely chose not to engage. "This is theft of Council military property," the facility commander announced over loudspeakers. "You will be arrested and prosecuted." "These beings aren't property," Danny called back. "They're soldiers who deserve the right to choose their service. We're giving them that choice. The Council will send fleets to stop you." "Let them try," Danny said, leading his expanded pack back to Hope's Defiance. They repeated the pattern at 3 more facilities over the next 2 months. Land. Free beasts. Convince them to join. Evacuate before overwhelming force arrived. Danny's pack grew to 68 warbeasts, each one choosing to follow rather than being forced. Chen documented everything, recording proof that the beasts were capable of choice and loyalty. Vax trained the humans they'd recruited into a functional crew, and the warbeasts learned to work together as a unified force. News of what Danny was doing spread through military channels. Some called him a traitor. Others called him a visionary. Everyone agreed he was changing something fundamental about how the galaxy understood biological weapons and the rights of created beings. The Council finally responded 4 months after Danny's first facility raid. A fleet of 6 ships vectored to intercept Hope's Defiance with orders to capture or destroy. Danny could have run. The captured capital ship was fast enough to escape. Instead, he positioned his ship between Earth and the Council fleet and opened a channel. "This is Daniel Martinez, aboard Hope's Defiance. I know you're here to stop me. But before you attack, you should know that the Kashari Accord is planning an assault on Council space within the next 2 months. They're going to hit fast and hard, and humanity is one of their primary targets." "We've heard these claims," the fleet commander responded. "We've found no evidence to support them. Because you're not looking in the right places. The Accord is using stealth technology beyond Council capabilities. They're massing ships outside your sensor range. By the time you detect them, it'll be too late. Even if true, that doesn't justify your theft of military assets." "I didn't steal them," Danny said. "I freed them. Every warbeast with me chose to be here. They're soldiers with rights, not weapons to be stored and deployed. If you can't see that, you're not fit to command them." The channel went silent for a long moment. Then the fleet commander's voice returned, carrying an unexpected tone. "The Council has authorized me to offer terms. Surrender the warbeasts and yourself for trial. In exchange, we will investigate your claims about the Accord." "Counteroffer," Danny said. "Come aboard Hope's Defiance. See the warbeasts for yourself. Watch how they operate. Then tell me I'm wrong about them deserving choice." Another silence. Then, "Agreed. I'm coming aboard alone and unarmed. If this is a trap, my fleet will destroy your ship." "Not a trap," Danny promised. "Just truth." The Council fleet commander was a Valkorian named Quarex, a veteran of 30 years of military service. She materialized aboard Hope's Defiance via transport beam, looking skeptical and ready for betrayal. What she found was 68 warbeasts moving through training exercises with discipline that matched any elite military unit. Danny walked her through the ship, showing her how the beasts responded to commands, how they made tactical decisions, how they protected their human companions. He introduced her to Ghost, letting her see the alpha beast's intelligence and awareness. "This shouldn't be possible," Quarex said finally. "Every assessment we've conducted says warbeasts lack the cognitive capacity for this level of cooperation." "Every assessment was wrong," Danny said. "They have the capacity. They just never had someone who saw them as more than weapons." Quarex watched Ghost interact with younger beasts, teaching them formation tactics through demonstration. If what you're saying about the Accord is true, if they're planning an assault, we'll need every advantage, including your war beasts. They're not my war beasts, Danny corrected. They're soldiers who've chosen to serve, and they'll help defend Council space, but only if the Council recognizes them as beings with rights, not property. That would require Council approval. The bureaucracy alone could take years. We don't have years, Danny said. You need to decide if you're going to help me prepare or waste time trying to stop me. Quarex studied Danny with crystalline eyes that had seen more combat than Danny could imagine. Then she made a decision that would change everything. I'm going to recommend the Council grant you provisional authorization to continue your operations. You'll have 6 months to prove your war beasts can make a difference. If the Accord attacks, and your forces help defend Council space, the charges against you will be dropped, and your beasts will be recognized as independent military contractors. And if the Accord doesn't attack, then you'll face trial for theft, mutiny, and about 40 other charges. But I'm betting you're right about the threat. She paused. I'm also betting humanity needs you to be right. Danny extended his hand. Quarex looked at it, understanding the human gesture, and pressed her crystalline equivalent against his palm. Don't make me regret this. Martinez. I'll do my best, sir. The Accord attacked 6 weeks later, exactly as the pirate captain had warned. 300 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Council space and began pushing toward inhabited systems. The Council fleet scrambled to respond, but they were outnumbered and caught off guard. Danny received the alert aboard Hope's Defiance, while his expanded crew of 40 humans, 20 other species, and 96 war beasts prepared for exactly this moment. He'd spent the last month recruiting, training, and building a force that could operate independently of Council command structure. Now, it was time to prove they were worth the risk. All hands, combat stations, Danny announced over the ship's comm system. The Accord has begun their assault. We're vectoring to intercept at rally point Delta 7. Ghost, get your pack ready. This is what we've been training for. The Alpha Beast rumbled acknowledgement from somewhere in the ship's depths. The other beasts responded in chorus, a sound that Danny felt through the deck plating. Hope's Defiance jumped to faster-than-light travel alongside 12 other ships Danny had acquired or convinced to join his cause. It wasn't much compared to the Accord fleet, but it was enough to make a difference. They dropped into normal space at rally point Delta 7 to find chaos. An Accord battle group was systematically destroying a Council defensive station while civilian transports tried to evacuate. Council ships fought valiantly but were being overwhelmed by superior numbers. Chen, tactical analysis, Danny ordered. The Accord is using a hammer and anvil strategy. Heavy ships pin Council forces while fast attack craft eliminate support vessels. If we don't break their formation, the station falls within the hour. Then we break their formation. Vax, target their command ship. All other vessels, engage attack craft, and give the Council ships room to maneuver. And launch the beasts. This was the innovation Danny had spent months developing. War beasts in zero-gravity combat suits, launched from shipborne tubes like living missiles. They couldn't survive in vacuum indefinitely. But they could handle it long enough to breach enemy ships and cause internal chaos. 60 war beasts launched from Hope's Defiance in coordinated salvos. They vectored toward Accord ships, with suits providing thrust and life support. The enemy point defense systems were designed to counter missiles and fighters, not biological weapons moving with unpredictable trajectories. The beasts crashed into Accord ships and began cutting through hull plating with claws designed to tear apart war beast hide. Within minutes, internal alarms screamed through a dozen enemy vessels as massive predators rampaged through their corridors. The Accord formation wavered. Ships broke off to deal with internal threats. The hammer and anvil strategy collapsed into defensive chaos. Council forces pressed their advantage, destroying crippled ships and protecting civilian evacuation. Danny watched the tactical display with satisfaction. It's working. The beasts are doing exactly what we trained them for. Accord command ship is retreating, Chen reported. Their entire fleet is breaking off. Let them go, Danny said. We've proved our point. The war beasts can make a difference. But the celebration was premature. The Accord command ship wasn't retreating. It was repositioning for a different attack. Danny saw it too late. The massive vessel turned and fired a full spread of torpedoes, not at Council military ships, but at the civilian transports still evacuating the station. No, Danny screamed. Chen, intercept those torpedoes. Everything we have, now. Hope's Defiance and the Allied ships tried. They destroyed 8 of 12 torpedoes. The remaining 4 slammed into civilian transports, turning evacuation ships into expanding clouds of debris and frozen bodies. Danny watched thousands of lives end in seconds. His hands clenched on his command chair's armrests, hard enough to hurt. The Accord had just proved they wouldn't fight by any rules humanity recognized. The Accord command ship is charging faster than light drive, Vax reported. They're escaping. Recall the war beasts, Danny said, his voice flat. We're going after that command ship. Danny, we don't have the resources for pursuit, Chen protested. We need to help with rescue operations here. The Accord just killed thousands of civilians to make a point. If we don't respond, they'll do it again. Ghost and the pack understand. They want justice as much as we do. The Alpha Beast's roar echoed through the ship, confirming Danny's words. They understood that predators sometimes needed to be hunted. Pursue, Danny ordered. They chased the Accord command ship through 3-star systems, tracking its faster-than-light signature with sensors Chen had modified for exactly this purpose. The enemy vessel was faster than Hope's Defiance, but not by much. And the war beasts they'd left aboard enemy ships during the battle were sending tracking signals every time those ships dropped to normal space. They caught up with the Accord command ship in an uninhabited system, far from witnesses or reinforcements. The enemy vessel was damaged from the earlier battle, its shields weakened, but it was still dangerous, still capable of destroying Danny's ship if given the chance. Open a channel, Danny ordered. You're seriously going to talk to them? Chen asked. Always try talking first. Violence is what happens when talking fails. The channel opened. The Accord command ship's captain appeared on the view screen, a species Danny didn't recognize. Tall, angular, with skin that seemed to shift colors based on emotion. You've pursued us far from Council protection, human. That was a mistake. You killed thousands of civilians, Danny said. That was a mistake. Surrender your ship and crew. Face trial for war crimes. Or we'll take your ship by force. The Accord captain's skin shifted to a pattern that Danny's implant translated as contempt. Your single vessel against my command ship? You're as foolish as reports indicated. I'm not alone, Danny said. Ghost, show them. On cue. The war beasts still aboard Accord ships detonated breaching charges they'd placed during the earlier battle. 12 Accord vessels lost structural integrity simultaneously, forcing emergency evacuations. The command ship's captain watched their fleet cripple itself, and their skin shifted to a color Danny's implant translated as fear. Those were my ships, my crew. They're alive, Danny said. More mercy than you showed those civilians. Last chance. Surrender. The Accord captain's skin went through a rapid series of color shifts. Then they reached for a control panel. Danny saw it happening and shouted a warning, but it was too late. The Accord command ship's core overloaded, detonating with enough force to vaporize everything within 1,000 kilometers. Hope's Defiance barely escaped the blast radius. They jumped to faster-than-light travel with shields failing and hull plating melting from the heat. When they finally stopped to assess damage, half the ship's systems were offline, and 3 crew members were injured. They chose death over surrender, Vax said, his tone carrying something that might have been respect. That was a warrior's choice. That was a waste, Danny countered. They could have lived. Their crew could have lived. But they chose spite over sense. Chen pulled up casualty reports from the battle they'd left behind. Final count from the civilian transport attack is 2,000. 317 dead. But we saved 4 times that number by disrupting the Accord assault. The Council is calling it a victory. It doesn't feel like victory, Danny said, looking at the names scrolling across the display. Real people with real lives ended because the Accord wanted to make a point. Ghost appeared in the doorway to the bridge, too large to fully enter the space. The Alpha Beast studied Danny with those 6 intelligent eyes. Danny met its gaze and saw something reflected there. Sadness, anger, determination. I know, Danny told the beast. We're going to make sure it meant something. Every life lost today is going to be the reason we fight harder to protect the ones still alive. Ghost rumbled agreement, and the pack responded from throughout the damaged ship. Commander Quarex contacted them 6 hours later with an emergency communication. Martinez, the Council has made their decision. Your actions during the battle have proven the worth of your War Beast program. You're being granted full authorization to continue operations. The charges against you are dropped. W'd. That's good news, Danny said carefully. But you sound like there's more. The Accord's assault was just the beginning. Intelligence indicates they're planning a second wave, 3 times larger. They're targeting human space directly this time. Earth and all your colony worlds. You have 6 months to prepare. Danny felt the weight of that timeline. 6 months to build an army. 6 months to convince humanity that the threat was real. 6 months to turn war beasts and hope into actual defense. We'll be ready, Danny said. Humanity didn't get this far by backing down from impossible odds. See that you are. The galaxy is watching, Martinez. Watching to see if humans really can befriend monsters and turn them into heroes. Danny looked at Ghost and thought about the pack spread throughout his damaged ship. About the beasts that had chosen to fight beside humans. About the impossible connection they'd formed. They were never monsters, Danny said. Just misunderstood. And heroes aren't born. They choose to be heroes. That's what makes them worth following. He closed the channel and turned to his crew. All right, people. We've got 6 months and a galaxy to save. Let's get to work. Hope's Defiance limped toward the nearest repair station, carrying humans, aliens, and war beasts who'd all chosen the same path. They would defend Earth. They would prove humanity belonged among the stars. And they would do it together. Because sometimes the best answer to impossible questions was choosing to believe in each other.